seen a lot of people having challenges with overfiling their sidewalls. So today I'm going to take you through how to fix those shapes and hopefully also give you some pointers as to how to not get those overfiled sidewalls. When we have longer, more tapered shapes or even shorter tapered shapes, a lot of times people tend to overfile their sidewalls down here. They file notches into the corner. They try to taper those nails too thin on the end without getting the proper structure. So I'm going to show you two different ways you can fix these type of nails. First way is going to be to basically kind of patch what you have. So for that, I'm going to take my sanding band, and I have a finished nail here that we've kind of done as a demo. So this does have top coat on. I'm just going to go through and I'm going to lightly remove that top coat so that I have a kind of a textured surface that I can work on. So just like you'd be prepping a nail, just enough to remove that shiny surface. Now if you have just filed and finished this and you don't have top coat, you're going to skip this step because your nail's already going to be filed. Just go through and remove that shine. Don't worry about trying to take that whole entire top coat off. That the acrylic is going to bond just fine to that nail. But we do want to take off that shiny surface. So for this first one, we're basically going to keep the nail that we've got. We're going to put a form up underneath here and just kind of patch those sides. So dust that nail off. We're going to use a little bit of swipe to cleanse. Okay, so I'm going to put protein bond on that whole nail, making sure that I get that edge where we're going to be filling in. So anywhere that we're going to be adding acrylic, I do want to make sure that I put that little bit of extra protein bond, just kind of for that added insurance. Okay, so once we have that nail prepped, we're going to take a form and we're going to, just like we would be putting a form onto a regular nail, put that little tab on the back. You're going to pinch your tabs together. I'm going to open up that top. Now notice that I didn't pinch really tight at the end. I want to make sure that my form is getting to the same shape underneath the natural or underneath this nail. So once I get that form up there, then I'll kind of pinch it so that it fits a little bit more flush up under there, just to make sure that there's no gaps. Okay? I'm going to make sure that my form comes up underneath that natural nail. And then once I kind of have that under there, so I want to make sure that that form is flush up underneath that nail so that there's no gaps. So now is when I'll kind of pinch that and adjust that and make sure that it's flush right up underneath that extension. So if we line up our file, we're basically going to be filling in that little kind of triangular section right in that corner there. I'm going to grab my cover pink because that's what we used to sculpt the nail originally. And we're just going to pick up kind of a smaller pearl. I'm going to drain out that extra liquid and then we're going to set that right down into that area. I'm just going to press that down in there, kind of blend that out to the free edge, press out that side so it's a little bit flat, and then I'm going to use the edge of my brush to just kind of tuck that product up in there. So using the edge of my brush, tuck that up into that corner, into that little section that was missing, and just start to kind of taper that back down to the free edge. Okay, so again, using the edge of my brush, I'm not turning my brush on the side like this and pushing in. I'm using the edge of my brush right through here. So using that edge of my brush to tuck that up in there, and that's how we're going to fill in that product. I'm going to kind of press that product all the way up and over, so that this way I've got a nice smooth surface. Now you guys, we are going to do some filing and finishing, so if it's not 100% perfectly smooth, that's okay. We're going to do some filing and finishing. But let's go over to our other side, and we're going to do the same thing on the other side. We're going to pick up another pearl, and again a little on the smaller side, drain out some of that extra liquid, drop that right down into that little section there, kind of press that out, blend it in. And then we're going to just tuck that little edge up into that corner, walk it up into that corner, just like we'd be sculpting an extension from scratch. Okay? Just pressing that up into the corner, using the edge of my brush to tuck that in on the side, and then blend out that extra nail. Okay, again, just tucking in on the sides and blend in. Okay? So now we've gone from a nail that's completely missing its sides to a nail that now has that proper lower arch. Okay. What if for some reason you're not able to get that form up underneath there? Because again, you guys, you want that form to be flush up underneath that nail. You don't want any gaps. You don't want any openings or anything underneath there. Maybe if the nail has grown out considerably and that natural nail underneath is kind of growing out, you may not get that form completely perfect up underneath that natural nail. So we don't want to have gaps. So another technique that we can do would be to basically cut off this free edge and resculpt. Okay. Maybe if your client came in and maybe you had done this set maybe a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, and they grew out, and now you're noticing that this is definitely a good time to use basically the cutoff technique. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to clip off that free edge. Now make sure that if you're clipping off the free edge, always turn that hand over and check and see where their hyponychium is, because you don't want to be cutting into that hyponychium. So you can just either cut from underneath here or just observe where that hyponychium is, and then you can turn it back over and cut from the top side. A little clip on each side. Okay, and clip off as much of that free edge as you can. This way, we'll be able to get that form back up underneath there a little bit easier. So once we've clipped that off, this is where I'm going to actually shorten this nail up a little bit more, and I'm going to thin this down a little bit. I'm going to turn my speed on my e-file to about 15,000 RPMs, and I'm just going to start to kind of take down some of that product. Just kind of thinning and tapering at that free edge, because this way I'm going to be able to add new product on there and build up the proper structure, and just kind of gives me a little bit more of a good structure when I take down this little bit of product at the end. Okay. The other thing too is that if you have natural nail underneath this extension right here, if you clip that, sometimes that can cause separation between that natural nail and the acrylic. So it's best to, at least right down here towards the free edge, take down that product to make sure that you're not seeing any separation of that natural nail from the acrylic. I'm just kind of pulling through, working all the way across the nail. You guys, I'm not staying in the same spot over and over. If you do stay in the same spot over and over, that can start to create heat, and we want to make sure that we're not causing any heat or discomfort on that client. Okay, we can go ahead and shorten this up a little bit more even. Take that down a little bit shorter, just enough so that we're going to be able to get that form underneath that nail and not have any gaps. Okay, I'm just going to go through and re-prep that surface just like we did on our first nail. Okay, so I'm just going to go back through with my sanding band, just like we did on that first nail. I'm going to just kind of re-prep that surface, remove any shine, give my nail a little bit more texture so my acrylic is going to bond really well to that. Now, if I'm not filling in this nail, I don't really have to be super concerned up by that cuticle area, but if your client did come in for a fill and now you're fixing these overfiled sidewalls, you would definitely go through, re-prep, sculpt out the nail, and then fill in that back area. Okay, so you do want to make sure, again, if you're filling, that you do remove all of that shine all the way through the nail. Okay, for this one, we're going to dust it off. Now, if you feel like you need to, you can go through and you can clean up that free edge a little bit more, again, so that you don't have any edges that are going to interfere with your form application or anything like that. But you don't have to make that completely perfectly straight and even. Just make sure that your form is going to fit flush up underneath there. Okay, we'll dust off that nail. Again, come back to our swipe, cleanse that nail with the swipe. Again, we're going to put our form back on. And at this point, it's going to be just like you would be sculpting or doing a rebalance, changing out your design, anything like that. But again, you're going to get that form back on there, right up underneath that natural nail. Again, making sure that there's no gaps underneath there. And that's going to come all the way back to that natural nail. Okay. Now, I'm going to add a coat of protein bond. Again, if you guys are filling this nail, make sure to do 2 coats of protein bond on the natural nail area that's showing. Otherwise, 1 coat of protein bond over the acrylic is going to be just fine. Again, for just kind of that added insurance to make sure that your acrylic is going to adhere really well. Now, when you're resculpting, to avoid getting those notches again, there's a couple of things you want to keep in mind. If you're going to be doing more of a stiletto shape or more of a coffin shape, make sure that you are pinching that form all the way to the end And I like to even come underneath here, so kind of underneath this area right here, and really pinch that to make sure that I've got a nice tight C-curve to that form. That's gonna help when you actually are filing. It's gonna give you that proper pinch, it's gonna give you more of that structure, and it's gonna be more tapered by having more of a pinch in that form, okay? So that way, again, you're not gonna be filing off those sides when you do your finishing. Just kind of like we did before on our first nail, we're going to pick up a pearl. This time we're going to just sculpt out that whole entire free edge. I'm going to drain out that extra liquid. I'm going to tuck that right up to that nail on there, press that out, press my product from side to side, and then again using the edge of my brush, tuck that in, and I want to make sure that I'm coming all the way up into kind of that sidewall, all the way up to where that natural nail is growing out. Let's come back over to our other side, press that back up in, bring that all the way back up into that edge, okay? Now, as I'm sculpting, if I'm building out an extension that is gonna be a stiletto or a coffin shaped nail, I'm gonna start by tapering in that product from my sculpting, okay? I'm not gonna wait until I file to bring that into that point or into that coffin shape. I'm going to do that when I'm applying my product. So I'm going to start again by pressing in a little bit more on those sides using the edge of my brush and bringing that more out to that point of my form. So you can see I'm already getting that stiletto or coffin shape in my application. Again, I'm not waiting until I'm going to file. Okay? Because again, when we file, sometimes we file too much. And if we start with that coffin shape to begin with, we're going to already have that shape in there. You're going to have your product all the way up into these corners, and that sidewall is going to come straight out. There's not going to be that little notch in there anymore. Okay? So again, keeping your brush straight in line with that lower arch is going to really help to avoid getting those notches in there. Okay? Once we have that, again, if you need to fill, you can start with your cuticle application from the back cuticle area and pull that forward. Otherwise, if you already have product in there, then you can start with your application just through that arch. Okay? I'm going to assume that we're filling this one. And I'm going to start with my product back through my arch, or back by my cuticle area. Press that down, and basically we're just going to create another overlay onto this nail and just building up that same structure. Okay. All right, so our product has been on for almost a minute or so. It's getting to the point where I can come in and I can pinch in my C-curve. Now again, you guys, this is another technique that is really going to help to keep you from over filing your product. Again, if you can pinch in more of a tighter C-curve, that way you're going to again keep that tapered shape, and you're not going to feel like you need to file over on the sides. Okay, so again, pinching in that C-curve as your product is setting is going to again help you to keep from overfiling those sides. So at this point, our nail is set. So a couple of tricks when you're filing so that you don't get those notches in there. When you're doing your lower arches, make sure that you're actually turning that client's hand on the side so that you can see that lower arch. If you're filing here and you're trying to do your lower arch from this direction, this is where a lot of times people tend to file up into that corner and get that notch, okay? Because they're trying to come in like this, and it's not the right angle for your file. By turning that client's hand on the side, you can see exactly where that product is coming out from that natural nail, and you can see what's hanging below. So let me turn this side. This is a much better example. Again, if I were to hold my file straight in line, and you want to keep your file straight in line with the finger coming straight out from that natural nail, you can see exactly what's hanging below my file. And I'm going to use a marker here so you guys can really see a little bit better. So basically what's coming straight out from that finger, straight out from that nail, is this line here. Okay. So that's going to be kind of our guide. Okay, so anything below this, all of this little frayed stuff down here, that's what you need to file off. When you're filing, you want to make sure that you're not filing from here. You don't want to put pressure up into that corner, and a lot of times that's what people do. Again, when they're filing from this view, they tend to come in like this. And again, that's going to be putting pressure and putting that file up into that corner. So again, if we're looking from this view, you're going to put pressure at the lowest hanging part. So this part right down here that's hanging the lowest, you're going to put your file pressure there, but straight in line, kind of parallel to that line that we just drew on there. And you guys, if you're new to this and you're still just kind of practicing this, go ahead and grab a marker and draw that onto your client's nails. I know it sounds crazy, but it's going to help you, okay? And they're going to be fine with it. You're not drawing on their finger or anything like that, but it's going to help give you that idea of where you need to file. So we're just going to start by putting pressure again at that lowest hanging point. We're going to file that, again, keeping that file straight in line with the finger, straight in line with that lower arch. And I am putting a little bit of pressure on top of that client's finger, so that way it's not putting pressure on that free edge. So it's kind of just balancing. Okay? So straight in line until my file comes even with that line that we drew in there. Okay, and again, you guys, be careful, because usually at this point, this is where people tend to feel like they want to come into that corner again. Make sure that you're still just putting pressure right at that free edge and letting the file do the work. Don't turn it into that corner. Keep it straight out from that lower arch. Okay, just keep filing straight, and then that's going to come straight out from that natural nail. Okay. So when you're filing your sidewalls from here, make sure that you're not angling your file in this way. Make sure that you're keeping that file straight up and down. All you should be seeing is that blue line down the center of the file. If you tilt that file and you start to see this gray area of the file, that's going to be cutting up into that corner. So again, make sure on those sides that you're filing straight here. Same thing on the other side, straight on the other side, and we're not angling that file into those corners. All right, so hopefully some of these techniques are going to help you guys to avoid getting those notches and overfiling your sides, but if accidentally you do notice that you did overfile them, now you've got two options to help you repair those nails or fix those overfiled sidewalls.